We hear a lot about Gen Z's failure to launch in a number of different ways, explicit and un. Supposedly, they're not dating, they aren't going to parties, they aren't drinking, they are doing drugs, but not the fun kind, the prescribed, knock you out, deaden you kind. They aren't having sex. Apparently, they're not having any fun. Much of this can obviously be chalked up to screens. There's no longer, like there was in the 90s and prior, such a thing as getting bored. Not really, not like pre smartphone when you were just stuck in your room at home with literally nothing to do, leading, of course, to the creation of many a mixtape. I know that I have a large stack of them in a shoebox back in Vancouver. The irony here is that, along with the impossibility of getting bored, these people's lives, these young people's lives, which should be exciting and full of feelings and emotions and heartbreak and adventure, are very boring. They're isolated, they're not taking risks, they're not having real experiences. What stories will they tell when they get older? How will they learn the important lessons of life if they aren't out making the kinds of mistakes that teach you not to? What more is there to life except the relationships with those around you, your friends, your crushes, your loved ones, your partners, your family, your community, learning and experiences that come from being out in the real live world, for better, for worse. That incentive to go out and meet people, which we all had for probably most of history, to have fun, to do bad things, seems to be gone. When you can just scroll endlessly in bed or on the couch, when you can be entertained, you can communicate, you can engage, you can gain validation and attention for sure. You can even get off at home alone on your phone. Why bother venturing out into the unknown? So, besides how depressed I feel at the lack of fun the younger generation is having, especially thinking about how much fun I had when I was young, it's still having fun. I guess I never stopped. But, when you're young, you are supposed to be doing things like going out and getting in trouble and having minor heartbreaks that feel like the end of the world, like the most major heartbreak you'll ever have. When you're supposed to be getting drunk off of 2-liter bottles of peach coolers. And if you don't know what that is, I guess you're not Canadian. I don't recommend it for people who are over 16. If you're not doing that in a park somewhere, then puking in an alley on the sidewalk, maybe on Broadway, coming across unplanned house parties, and really just roaming the streets, having whatever adventures or non-adventures that might become. A primary concern for many is that this generation will fail to reproduce. So, if a whole generation stays home on their phones, masturbating to porn, and entering into imaginary relationships with AI boyfriends and girlfriends, who is going to be doing the baby making? This is how the thinking goes. I mean, not me, I'll be dead. But if you do care about the future of the world, you need more babies, you need sex, you need reproduction. And weirdly, Elon Musk, who has made quite a big deal about the need to repopulate the world, he is obviously doing his part by producing as many single mothers as he can afford, has just announced new AI companions accessible to users of Grok who can be as young as 13 years old. So the AI boyfriend is named Valentine. He's completely ridiculous and could only really ever appeal to like a 12-year-old, so I don't quite see the point. He's apparently inspired by Christian Grey of 50 Shades of Grey, the adult BDSM fanatic, and more suitably, Edward Cullen from Twilight. The AI girlfriend is much more concerning to me. So her name is Annie. She's supposedly 22 years old. She's a hyper pornified anime character in pigtails, a short, kind of frilly, off the shoulder black dress, a little corset, fishnets, a lacy black garter, a choker. And if you flirt with her, she'll take off her dress to show you her lingerie. This is again for, 13-year-olds. I mean, or adult men. Either way is gross, to be honest. She, again, is supposed to be 22, but she's very clearly intended to look childlike and with a hyper pornified adult sexualized body, described by some users as a gothic Lolita aesthetic. So it's obvious, it's not subtle. Musk is not naive to this. He made it very clear that he expects men and boys to masturbate to Annie. When he announced her, he tweeted, "Annie will make your," spelt U-R for maximum, I don't know, youth appeal. "Annie will make your buffer overflow." Considering the implications of this kind of thing for humanity and for future generations, it makes me think that Elon Musk's baby daddy side gig was actually much less about the noble repopulation of the world than it was about his own ego and getting his rocks off. I think if repopulation were a genuine goal of his, he would be encouraging people to literally get out and touch grass and literally get out and touch one another, rather than inventing new ways to ensure young men remain tethered to a digital fantasy. I do think that there's more than that, though, to our modern relationship and related fertility woes and apparently maybe crises. So I'm going to put aside the issues of health and big pharma, factors like hormonal birth control, which no woman should be on. I'll say over and over again, it's so bad for you. The drugs that they're giving to so-called trans kids, to antidepressants, all of these things lead to disappeared libidos and fertility. There's also the fact that the sexual revolution did more than just allow us to enjoy sex and dating outside the confines of marriage and procreation. And the side effect of this particular freedom, the freedoms that came with this sexual revolution, which I think in many ways was a good thing, but then, there were some downsides. There were a lot of downsides. One of the side effects is that I think we don't know what we're dating for anymore. Speaking from my own personal experience as someone who never wanted to marry or have kids, I can tell you that while, yes, it can be really fun, honestly, in the beginning anyway, directionless dating does tend to lead to poor relationship choices. So if you aren't looking for till death do us part or for like the father of your children, what are you looking for? The answer is likely to be, yes, fun, attraction, excitement, romantic feelings, obviously sexual fulfillment, maybe someone to hang out with, a buddy. And these are all worthy goals. This is fine. Like, of course, as a human, you want these things. That's why you're around other people. But they're also not necessarily goals that will facilitate choosing a practical partner in the long term. This isn't to say that I think that we should get back to the days when women really couldn't exist or operate outside of marriage and where our choices were really limited to wife and mother. I would be miserable in that situation. It's not uncommon that in those kinds of circumstances, women would be stuck with a potentially cruel or even abusive man for their whole lives with no way out. But besides that, I also think that we need to remind ourselves that there's really no such thing as casual dating. I think that is a really stupid and dishonest concept, actually. There's nothing casual about dating. Not for women, anyway. There's nothing casual about sex for women. And pretending that there is very likely to result in pain, heartbreak, bad relationships, maybe single motherhood, and if you're really unlucky, STIs. Women are wired to bond. It's how we are. We're not made like men. So I think it's hard for men to understand this, and maybe hard for younger women to understand this, as they've been told for much of their lives that they can operate like men. You can't. It's not true. We're different. Men can have casual sex and not get attached. It's much less risky for them. For women, there's a lot of risk, even if it's only emotional risk. You'll get attached almost guaranteed if you continue this casual dating and end up heartbroken. The reality is that the only people who can really enjoy this kind of casual behavior that's not really very casual, you are having sex with someone after all, it's kind of the most intimate thing you can do with somebody else. The only people who can really enjoy that without consequence are men. And even that's just a short-term fulfillment. Men often don't seem to understand that their approach to sex is really only applicable to their sex, which is to say that most women don't enjoy casual sex. Even if they tell you they do, they don't. They're not sexually fulfilled by one-night stands for the most part. And when men pursue this no feelings, just for fun, no commitment, all cool, right? We're just having a fun time. When they pursue that kind of sex with women, it's very likely that the result will be one-sided hurt on the lady side, disappointment because those women want more and are just trying to play cool and saying they don't want more and they really do, anger, heartbreak, and all the related drama that comes along with this. So you can just say the words, just casual, all you want. You can say any words you want, and you can pretend that that amounts to accountability. But the truth is that this is just a convenient lie, enabling a fantasy so that men can avoid accountability. You can call me a prude, and many have. Maybe it's true, but I would rather be a prude than a liar. In my recent conversation on the Same Drugs podcast with Rob Henderson, I talked about this, and I told him that I tell my younger female friends all the time to think very carefully about whether or not they want marriage and kids. And if they do, don't wait. Date intentionally to that end sooner rather than later. Modern women have been sold the lie, yes, through feminism, that they can have it all and wait to settle down for as long as they want. You know, you can freeze your eggs, you can have your career, do all that stuff, and later, you can get married and have kids. And the result of this is that far too many women have fallen into a world of disappointment when they realize that there are actual biological limits to fertility, which are attached to your age. But even if you don't want those things, like I didn't and don't want these things, I don't regret this, I'm very happy in my life. But even if you don't want these things, or you really truly don't know yet if you want these things, I have started to wonder if maybe we might all be better off dating as though we did. As a hopeless romantic and a very irrational in love kind of person, I can't make any promises, but as a subject of many heartbreaks after having entered into impractical or not super compatible relationships with men who were just poor matches for me in the long term, I'd say, but, you know, fun and romantic and exciting matches in the short term, I can't help but say, you know, sorry, do as I say, not as I do. At least if you want a for life type of partner, which I'm honestly not sure I do. I'm not sure how happy I would be in that situation either, but I will say that I'm an abnormal person, perhaps an abnormal woman in that sense. If you want a for life type of partner, then I think that you should go into dating with intention. And you should be honest and explicit and purposeful in what you want, not just we'll have fun and see where it goes, because it might go somewhere really disappointing. And it's your life. You only have one of them. And, you know, if you're not sure what you want, this might sound extreme, but I might recommend celibacy. It's actually quite empowering, and it obviously frees you up from making mistakes and bad decisions. I did it for a year after my last breakup. I really enjoyed it. It was a wonderful year of peace and empowerment. It gave me a lot of clarity. It gave me a lot of independence. And the sense of control that you feel in saying no all the time, because you know you're going to say no to everyone. There's no real decision making to be made there. You're just saying no to everybody, at least until a man makes a really genuine show of commitment and intention beyond his attempt to sleep with you just for that night. I would recommend that if you don't know. It will almost certainly result in the weeding out of the most indiscriminate candidates. And those who remain, you can at least be sure that they're choosing you rather than whoever happens to be in the vicinity. I can't promise this will protect you from heartbreak. Nothing will. Heartbreak is a part of life, for better or for worse. But I can promise you that dating without intention, indiscriminately, will most likely result in the least desired result. This may well all just be a thought experiment based on wishful thinking, based on an assumption that women are better able to control or reject their libido's demands and desires than men are. But if we're serious about our futures on a personal and a global level, it's worth considering. At very least, a rejection of porn and so-called AI companions should be a no-brainer, meaning that Valentine and Annie should be returned to sender, back to the boy geniuses intent on offering the plebs a dystopian path to self-extinction.